Hey, welcome to Live More, Worry Less. I'm so glad you're here. This workshop is really near and dear to my heart because I am a recovering worrywart myself. And I do know the impact that constantly worrying about things can have on your life. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we do, just so you know, if you haven't met me, I'm Jennifer Della Quadri. I'm a certified life coach. I'm also a certified yoga instructor, former teacher, 14 years, and the mom of two teen girls myself. I'm also a recovering and overcoming worrywart. I spent most of my life constantly worrying about what's to come, planning, hoping for the best, futurizing what could go wrong, and really spending so much of my time in that stressed out, worried, anxious feeling. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today is really what I did to help tame my tendency to worry, really take back my power and get back in control of my life so that I could start enjoying all facets of it and stop worrying so much. So just so you know what to expect here in this workshop or in this class is I'll be talking first a little bit about the most common triggers for anxiety and stress. Then I'll be talking about how you can identify them. And finally, I'll be sharing with you 5 tools that have helped me and that help my clients overcome that feeling of anxiety and manage the tendency to worry. So, without further ado, let's get started with the most common triggers for anxiety. And here they are written down. Take a look at the list and pay attention to what stands out to you. So, the most common ones, as you can see, are medication, caffeine intake, negative thinking, stress levels, personal triggers. So, sometimes a song or a smell or a location might bring up anxiety and worry in you, whether you're aware of it or not. Having a conflict in your life with someone you care about or an inner conflict can certainly cause you to worry. Going to social events, going out in public in general can really be a source of anxiety and stress in so many people. So these are just a few of them, but really what is important to note here is that of all of the things on the list, these two, medication, caffeine, they're more of a lifestyle, right? They're more outer influences. The following ones, the rest of them are more inner. So they're more internal influences. And I'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. But here's the good news is that no matter whether you are more of a worrier or whether you notice more of your tendency to worry being an outer influence or an internal influence, it doesn't matter because you can manage both. You can manage, obviously, your medication intake and your caffeine and what you ingest, but you can also manage your thoughts. You can also manage your stress levels and your personal triggers and your conflict in your social events. And I'll get into that a little bit more when I talk about the techniques that will help you manage your tendency to worry. So, thank you for joining. I'm glad you're here. All right, so starting with how to identify them. So, when it comes to identifying your personal triggers, you probably already have an idea of the things that cause you to worry just in general. But what can be helpful is just really getting curious about where this anxiety is coming from and thinking about it in a non judgmental way. So, paying attention to the cues when you're feeling more anxious and when you're worrying more, what's going on in your life? Is there a certain time of day where you worry more? Is there a certain day of the week where you find out that you feel that you're just feeling more anxious and overwhelmed in general? Or is there a time of the year? So it could be time based, it could be situational based. Pay attention to where you are, what you're doing when you start to overthink and worry and feel anxious. Pay attention to what you've eaten, how much sleep you've had. And like I said, just really getting curious. If it helps, write it down. Keep a worry journal. And I'll get into journaling in a moment, but really the intent is to, like a doctor would, look at your symptoms and what could potentially be causing them. By removing yourself from the environment, it will, in and of itself, help you see from an outsider's perspective what's going on. And then you can analyze and start kind of shifting things around. So if you notice that you are always more anxious on, say, Mondays, start getting curious. Well, what is it about Monday that makes me feel anxious? What do I do on Monday? Or maybe it's something that you do on Sunday that carries over to Monday. And it's going to be different for everyone. So paying attention is the very first step in noticing your triggers. And also noticing the things that you're ingesting, how you feel after you eat those things. When you're around certain people, are you feeling a little bit more anxious in certain areas or in certain locations when you're doing certain things? So, as far as identifying your triggers, that is the best way to do it, is to just do it from a place of curiosity, true curiosity, wondering where it's coming from so that you can address it from there. So, once you, and you know what, let me just tell you, truth be told, this is a lifelong process. Sometimes things will trigger you that never did before. Sometimes you'll start worrying about something that never crossed your mind before. It's a lifelong thing, but really it's a habit of being more reflective of where these thoughts are coming from and what it is you're really worrying about. And once you can get a handle on that, then you'll be able to better manage those tendencies and those thoughts. So, first, just getting curious, and second, tweaking things around a little bit and seeing what impact that might have. And if it has a positive impact and in lessening your tendencies to worry. So, thinking about what is it I'm really worried about in this moment? Just asking yourself questions. Okay. So now, once you are able to identify them, the 5 practices that I want to share with you right now, there's a range of them. And what I want to offer to you is to take your time with it. I know that some people will dive into something and think I have to do all the things. But what I'm sharing with you right now, I recommend just starting with one, taking it slow and seeing if it works, and then trying something else if you're finding that it's not helpful for you. Okay. So the very first thing that I wanted to share is for the outer triggers. Something that can help with outer triggers is to start tracking what you're eating. I use an app called MyFitnessPal. It just helps me get clear on what I'm consuming and make sure that I'm getting all of the nutrients that I really need to feel good in my body. But it also gives you just another data point to pay attention to how you're feeling. Well, what did you eat that day? How you're feeling? Oh, well, maybe you didn't get enough of calories or protein, or maybe you didn't get enough carbs or fats in your diet. So paying attention to what you eat and logging it can be a really helpful tool. And also logging your exercise or tracking it in some way. So something that can be helpful is when you sit down and you look at your week, is to plan out when you're going to exercise and put it in your calendar and treat it like an appointment. So if something comes up, treat it like you would any other appointment you have that's really important for you, and stick with it. Because exercise, whatever form of exercise you choose, but getting the opportunity to get your heart rate up and helps you release the stress and the anxiety and the worry. And it also takes you away from your everyday routine. It gets you moving. And it also releases the endorphins that are so important for helping you manage your stress levels. So start at the beginning of the week, look at your schedule, decide how often you're going to exercise, and plug it in where you have the space and treat it like an appointment. That and logging your food, paying attention to what you're consuming will help address those outer blocks, the things that are controllable that you can control with your lifestyle. The second or the final four, next four that I'm going to share with you, all have to do with those inner triggers, the internal block, and the internal work. The first one is getting a journal. So, what happens, and this is something that I do with my clients when they come to the phone and they're really worried about something or they're feeling overwhelmed, is I have them do just a thought download. And what that means is just setting a timer and just write. What am I worried about? And just write. What's making me feel overwhelmed? Without stopping, without judging, without trying to fix anything, just get it out on the paper. And what that does is it removes those thoughts from you and it puts it on something external that will help you be able to look at it objectively and analyze it and choose from there. So when you get it down on paper, look for trends, same thing. Are a lot of your thoughts having to do with something specific? Is it something you can change? Is it something you can shift? And when you look at your thought, decide, is this something I really want to think? Is this thought helpful for me? Is this worry serving me? Likely it's not, because the reason why you're feeling worried is because of that thought. It's because of all of those thoughts. So first, getting them down on paper will relieve some of that pressure for you. Looking at it objectively as an outsider and just say, okay, what's going on here? And then for extra credit, what can be really helpful is what's called an intentional thought creation. So for example, when you're writing down all of your thoughts, and you look back at it, if you see a thought that you know isn't serving you, to turn it around and create a thought that will. So for example, if you have a thought that is, I'm not living up to my potential, right? Like, or I'm not living the life I wanted to live, for example. And the feeling that comes from that is guilt, doubt, self-doubt, right? That doesn't feel good. So if you look at that and you say, you know what would I like to think instead? And switch it around. And I don't mean switch it around to something that is so far-fetched that you'll never believe. Like, I'm living my dream life and everything is amazing. That's not what I mean. I mean, what would you want to think instead? Instead of thinking, I'm not living up to my potential, shift it just a little bit. Make it a little more positive. I'm doing the best I can every single day. Think about how that would make you feel versus I'm not living up to my potential. I'm doing the best I can every single day. At least gives you a little bit more power in the situation, a little bit more in control. And the other thing is, I am 100% in charge of my life and my results. Think about how that thought might make you feel. Because once you choose a thought that makes you feel good, you can take notice when your mind goes to those negative thoughts and the worry starts to happen. It's like a little toddler. You just redirect. Oop, nope, we're not going over there. We're going to go over here right now. We're going to go over here and think this instead. Because what that does is it creates new neural pathways in your brain. And it's in essence training your brain. You're redirecting your brain every time it does that, just so it knows, oh, nope, we're not doing that. And then eventually when those neural pathways are created, it'll automatically start going there on its own. All the while, every time you think that thought, it's reaffirming that feeling of power, that feeling of control that you're looking for and that you're wanting in your life. Okay, so starts with the journal, getting the thoughts down, extra credit, intentional thought creation. The next thing that can help you with the inner work is talking to someone, of course. And there's a difference between talking to someone who is your friend and talking to someone who is totally impartial and not involved. So tell me if this, or think about this scenario. Something happens to you and you're really upset about it, and you call your friend and you tell your friend, and your friend is upset for you, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened, how awful, right? And then you're like, yeah, that is awful, right? It feels good to have someone on your team, but it also doesn't make you feel better. You may be feeling better by getting it off of your chest, but it's not extinguishing the fire or the flames of whatever it is that's upsetting you. So, yes, of course, having family and friends that you can talk to and just be real with is important. But having someone who's not attached to your story, your desired outcome, your thoughts, and just listen, someone who can point out those patterns that you may not be noticing, those blind spots that may be in the way. So, finding whether it be a coach or a therapist or a counselor of some sort, someone who is completely removed from your situation and can be totally impartial and just be a listening ear for you, can make all the difference. It takes the pressure off of you, and it gives you a space to be able to release some of the things that you're feeling, but also holds a mirror up to you. This is what you're saying, this is what you're creating, so that you can choose to intentionally move forward with your life and what you want to do about it. So, finding someone to talk to can help so much. The next thing, step 4, which is 3 of the inner work, is monitoring what you're consuming on a day to day basis. And I'm not talking about food, I'm talking about other people's thoughts. So if you think about it, when you go online or when you're looking at your phone and whether you're scrolling the news or you're on a social media app, you are being inundated with other people's thoughts, feelings, and ideas all the time. And sometimes you can take on those thoughts and feelings and ideas as your own and not even realize it. Be upset about something that you don't even have an opinion on because someone else is upset about it. So it can be good to have that connection and to be aware of what's going on in the world. At the same time, it's important for you to set aside time to really devote yourself to thinking for yourself. So, what I like to say is for every hour you spend consuming other people's thoughts and ideas and feelings, spend an hour on your own. And that may seem like a lot, especially if you spend a lot of time scrolling and looking at news or even watching Netflix. Your brain is being inundated by other people's thoughts. So, if you really want to help manage your anxiety and your worry, you need to start paying attention to your thoughts. Come up with thoughts on your own. Decide what you think, what's important to you, and then looking at what other people think, because then you won't be so influenced by what they're thinking because you know inside how you think and how you feel about it. So paying attention to what you're consuming, what you're spending your time on. And that may come up when you're doing the analysis of when you're feeling anxious. I know for some of my clients, they feel anxious after scrolling Facebook because they see all of this negativity and their brain goes, oh my gosh, the world is falling apart because of all these things that other people are saying. Whereas if they sat down and before going on and thinking what are other people thinking, deciding for themselves what's going on for me, what's happening in my life, how am I feeling, what do I think, before going to that. It can be a huge step and a game changer for you. And then the final one, most important, is finding a mindfulness practice for yourself. Something that feels good to you, not just another thing to check off the list. Whether it be yoga, meditation, taking a few moments to do a breathing exercise, spending time in nature, time to disconnect and just be where you are. It can even be reading a book, okay? A time where you're disconnected and just being in the moment where you are. Worrying is future based. Regret is past based. When you're in the present moment, you're free of worry and regret. So the more time you can really get present in this moment, the less time you will be spending worrying, the less time you will be concerned about all the things because you're here now. And a good practice can be even just when you're sitting, feeling your feet on the ground, or just noticing the sounds around you, or paying attention to your breath for 10 rounds. It doesn't have to be an hour long sitting in the lotus position. Just taking the time to just, where am I? What's going on? How am I feeling? And check in. And something that can be helpful that really can help you stay on track is on your phone. If you set a reminder to check in, like, how am I feeling? Or take 10 breaths. And that way, when you're going throughout your day, it'll be just a little, oh yeah, okay. Let me just take a second. And the more you do that, the less of a reminder you'll need. It'll just become a habit for you. It'll be easier. It won't be as much of a problem anymore. Okay. So here's a quick review of the 5 steps that I mentioned. Number 1 is to journal, get your thoughts down. Number 2 is to log your food, pay attention to your exercise, was before journal. And then number 3 was talk to someone who's impartial. Number 4 is monitor what you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. And number 5 is being more mindful, finding a mindfulness practice. So what I'd like you to do right now, you're here, you're listening, you're thinking about it. For yourself, pick one thing that you're willing to do. One thing. Maybe you're willing to start tracking your food. Maybe you're willing to start just journaling your thoughts when you get worried. Maybe you're ready to start scaling back on the time you spend ingesting other people's thoughts, or even just taking a minute each day to breathe. All of those things will for sure help you manage your tendency to worry. And the more you do them, the less you'll notice you're worrying. And you can take on multiple as you go through, but just pick one. The last thing you need is to start worrying about fitting meditation into your schedule. That is not what it's going to be for. So pick one, try it out, maybe for a week, see how it is, get curious, and then be willing to try something new if it doesn't really work for you. But be open to whatever comes up for you. So I hope this was helpful for you. I love working with my clients on these kinds of things because once they can take back their thoughts and take charge of their life, everything changes. It's no longer controlled by those worrying thoughts. And there's so much more power in your ability to live the life you want to live when you're not worrying about everything all of the time. You'll be a better person, you'll feel better, you'll feel stronger, and you'll feel great. So I hope this was helpful. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about coaching, reach out to me anytime. I'd love to chat with you, free consultation, and we can see if coaching is the right fit for you. And I look forward to seeing you next time.